Topic 4. Personal functioning and communication. People with intellectual disability experience personal functioning and communication difficulties as a result of intellectual impairment. Common areas of difficulty for people with intellectual disability include language, literacy and numeracy, short-term memory and sequencing, understanding and managing time, planning and problem solving, recognising and responding to feelings, and abstract thought. We'll now take a look at each of these in more detail. People with intellectual disability often have difficulty with language, literacy and numeracy tasks. They may have difficulty with reading and writing. They may have trouble comprehending signs, reading clocks or bus and rail timetables, or written instructions. People with intellectual disability may have difficulty with short-term memory and sequencing. For example, they may forget information and instructions that aren't written down. They may find it difficult to work out how to travel on the train to a new destination. And they may need support to plan the steps to achieve goals. Time can be a difficult concept for people with intellectual disability. People may not understand the difference between AM and PM, or 1:45 and 1/4 the hour. They may have difficulty with dates and concepts such as 2 days ago. People with intellectual disability may have difficulty with time management. They may have trouble keeping appointments or getting to work on time, and may be late or early, and they may struggle to work out how long it takes to get somewhere. To assist people to understand time or to describe time, connect time to something meaningful for the person. For example, ask, was it before or after dinner? Or what was on television at the time? People with intellectual disability can have difficulty with planning and problem-solving tasks. For example, they may struggle to work through unexpected problems when they present themselves, such as a public transport delay. People with intellectual disability can have difficulty recognising and responding to feelings, both their own and those of other people. Understanding emotions can be challenging. The language used to describe emotions is abstract, while the experience of emotions can be very concrete. People with intellectual disability often experience intense physical or behavioural responses to unexpressed emotions due to their limited means for identifying and expressing feelings. This is often compounded by a high level of experience of trauma through abuse and exploitation. People with intellectual disability often have difficulty with abstract concepts. These relate to things that can't be seen or touched, including mathematical concepts such as time and money, metaphors, euphemisms and analogies, emotions and feelings, and humour and jokes. People with intellectual disability often have trouble understanding concepts such as rights, respect, confidentiality, and goals. Commonly used terms like depression may need to be explained. On the other hand, some people demonstrate a surprising understanding of complex concepts. For example, counselling clients with intellectual disability have coined the following phrases: thinking backwards, to describe their experience of flashbacks; eating my feelings, one person's description of having an eating disorder; and having trouble being a man, one person's description of perpetrators of domestic violence. Intellectual impairment affects the way people think and learn, and people with intellectual disability may demonstrate different ways of learning, thinking, and navigating communication and social situations. Intellectual disability affects the way that a person learns. This includes the time taken to learn something, their ability to read and write, communication and understanding, the ability to plan and solve problems, and the ability to adapt to new and/or unfamiliar situations. People with intellectual disability generally learn at a slower pace, and many people will describe themselves as being a slow learner. People with intellectual disability learn better with concrete instruction and the opportunity to practice new skills in real-life situations or settings where the skill will be performed, rather than abstract learning from books or verbal instruction alone. Many people with intellectual disability are highly concrete thinkers. This can result in misunderstandings in interpersonal relationships due to their literal interpretation of verbal communications. For example, if people take humour and sarcasm literally. People with intellectual disability can be easily suggestible or ready to adopt the ideas of other people. This can be the result of their having difficulty understanding complex ideas, coupled with a learned reliance on other people for support. As a result, people can be vulnerable to other people taking advantage of them. For example, they may sign contracts from a door-to-door salesperson that they don't understand, or they may be ripped off in financial arrangements with friends and acquaintances. People with intellectual disability may internalise negative social attitudes and feel ashamed or embarrassed at having difficulty learning or managing daily living tasks. In turn, they may mask or hide their difficulties. They may do this for different reasons. For example, to fit in and avoid the stigma associated with having a disability, to avoid feelings of embarrassment and or shame at not knowing or understanding, to avoid being perceived as or feeling stupid, to avoid restrictions on opportunities to have the same experiences as their peers, friends and family members, to avoid further experiences of mistreatment or abuse, including rejection, bullying, exploitation and abuse. Masking can take different forms. Some people will not identify themselves as having an intellectual disability. They may not acknowledge or want to discuss any difficulties they experience. Some people develop strategies to hide limitations they experience. For example, they may rote-learn statements to use in conversation or to get by and deal with everyday experiences. Some people may avoid tasks that are difficult. For example, they may pay for purchases with notes rather than counting out coins. They may walk someone to a location rather than giving directions. Compliance, also called acquiescence, is a common method of masking disability. It is very common for people with intellectual disability to take on a passive communication style, where they let the more powerful person in the conversation take the lead. People may adopt a compliant or acquiescent communication style because they do not understand what is said, so they agree in an attempt to cover their misunderstanding or confusion. Or they may find it difficult to understand abstract information. We assume a lot of our communication is straightforward, when in fact it involves a lot of abstract knowledge. They may find it difficult to say no, particularly to someone in perceived authority. Or they may be afraid to say no, and agree with what is said to avoid getting into trouble. Research demonstrates that people with intellectual disability and other conditions associated with memory impairment, for example fetal alcohol syndrome, are more likely to engage in confabulation or exotic storytelling. Confabulation involves a process of guessing to fill in blanks in memory or imagining an event, then assuming the reality of the confabulation. It is important to understand the difference between confabulation and lying. A person who is lying is aware that what they are saying is untrue. However, a person who is confabulating believes that what they are saying is true. Confabulation can have serious consequences for people with intellectual disability who become involved in the criminal justice system. Some people may confess to crimes they did not commit, while the reliability of others as witnesses, including victims of crime, may be disputed where people are seen to engage in confabulation. In a similar way, people with intellectual disability may create, believe and tell stories that are not factually true, but rather reflect how they would like to be seen by others, or present their hopes and dreams as their current reality. These exotic stories can be a way of gaining respect and approval from others, increasing other people's opinions of them, and/or increasing their own opinion of themselves. Topic 4 has provided an overview of common personal functioning and communication difficulties and differences that may be experienced by people with intellectual disability. While it is important to have a general awareness of these common communication differences, Service providers and support workers need to get to know the people they are working with in order to understand their individual communication needs. To build your understanding of a person's needs, and with the consent of the person themselves, it can be very helpful to talk to people who know the person and their communication style well, including family members, significant others, and support providers. Thank you for listening to Topic 4. Topic 5 will explore strategies for addressing the communication barrier. But first, please return to the homepage and complete the Topic 4 learning activity.